And at the time, we did that hang tag, and we let one of our buyers know we wanted to attach the
Right,
hang
and one of the
tag
big retailers.
to our garment. And he screamed at us. We said, okay, fine. A season later, when we met, it was like, that's the best thing you guys could have done. That increased the sales.
It did.
Because customers learned who was behind the product.
It's 1992. Will Smith is clowning on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, dressed head to toe in baggy neon cross colors. Flip to MTV. TLC is dancing in the same bold gear. Tupac poses in it for promo shots. Across America, teenagers are lining up in malls for the same look. This wasn't Nike. It wasn't Tommy Hilfiger. It was something new. A brand with a mission. Clothing Without Prejudice. Launched in 1989, CrossColours rose like a rocket. By 1995, it had collapsed. To fans, it felt like the brand disappeared overnight. How does a company go from tens of millions in sales to vanishing in just 6 years? This is Aggressive Intelligence, where we break down the rise and fall of the world's most fascinating businesses. Today, we investigate CrossColours, the 90s fashion brand that tried to change the world, and learn the hard way what happens when hype collides with business reality. Because in fashion, cash flow is king, and one bad bet can bring it all down. Los Angeles, 1989. Hip-hop is exploding. MTV is blasting rap videos into suburban living rooms. Streetwear is moving from swap meets into the mainstream. Two men, Carl Jones and T.J. Walker, are watching it unfold. Carl Jones is a hustler with a screen printing shop. He's dabbled in surfwear with a small label called Surf Fetish. T.J. Walker is a designer and illustrator with an eye for bold, graphic statements. Together, they dream up something bigger, a brand that doesn't just sell clothes but sells a message. They launch CrossColours. The name itself is a statement, crossing racial and cultural lines. The tagline, Clothing Without Prejudice. The look is deliberate. Oversized silhouettes straight out of hip-hop. Bright blocks of red, green, gold, and black nods to Pan-African pride. Slogans stitched into the clothes like, Stop D-Violence, and Educate to Elevate. Every t-shirt becomes a billboard for unity. Jones later explained, We wanted fashion with a purpose. If you walked into a room in CrossColours, people knew what you stood for. Their launch plan? Guerrilla. Instead of department stores, they seed gear to stylists, rappers, and TV shows. And it works. Will Smith wears it on Fresh Prince. TLC dances in it. Tupac and Snoop Dogg rep it. Yo MTV Raps broadcasts it nationwide. In less than 2 years, CrossColours is the look of hip-hop. But fame doesn't always mean fortune. To turn hype into dollars, they need distribution. And the deal they land will make them rich and fatally exposed. The big break comes at the Magic Trade Show in Las Vegas. Buyers swarm their booth. CrossColours books $7 million in orders at their very first show. The very next year, they hit $10 million in a single day, $40 million in a week. Industry insiders crown them rising stars. They win back-to-back awards in 1992 and 1993. Black Enterprise names their parent company, Threads for Life, Company of the Year. Retailers line up. CrossColours lands in Macy's, gaining prestige in department stores. They sign with Miller's Outpost, a mall chain popular in the West. Independent urban wear boutiques stock their gear. But the rocket booster is Merry-Go-Round Enterprises. With more than 1,400 mall stores nationwide, MGR becomes their single largest account. For millions of teenagers, CrossColours appears not in a boutique, but right there in their local mall. To fill those orders, Jones and Walker lean on banks and factoring companies, lenders who advance cash against invoices. It's standard in fashion, but it leaves them vulnerable if a retailer ever defaults. By 1992, CrossColours is reporting $80 to $100 million in annual sales. Some insiders even project $160 million if the growth holds. To the founders, it feels unstoppable. But Macy's and Outpost are secondary players. Merry-Go-Round is the backbone. If that backbone breaks, the whole empire will fall. CrossColours wasn't just a business. It was a movement. In the early 90s, Louisiana was on edge. Gang violence was spiking. The Rodney King beating and the LA riots had shocked the nation. Youth culture was often painted as dangerous. CrossColours flipped that narrative. Their gear carried slogans of peace, education, and unity. Teachers wore it. Kids wore it. Rappers wore it. Decades later, the California African American Museum staged an exhibition honoring cross-colors as one of the most important black fashion movements of the 20th century. Cross-colors wasn't just fashion, it was activism sewn into cotton. But in business, visibility can be deadly, because when everyone sees you, everyone wants to copy you. By 1993, cross-colors is everywhere, maybe too everywhere. Swap meets flood with knockoffs. Discount stores carry cheap imitations, department stores overorder, and shelves overflow. Streetwear thrives on exclusivity. But when a brand feels too common, it loses its edge. Meanwhile, inside the company, the pressure is mounting. Deliveries run late. Suppliers want cash up front. Retailers grow frustrated. Cross-colors is still hot, but its aura is starting to fade. And then, in January 1994, the domino falls. January 1994. Merry-Go-Round Enterprises files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. By 1996, the chain is liquidated. Cross-Colors still has Macy's. They still have Miller's Outpost. They still have boutiques. But none of them can replace Merry-Go-Round's buying power. MGR had been writing the biggest checks. Suddenly, millions in shipped merchandise go unpaid. Banks and factors panic. Credit lines dry up. Suppliers refuse to cut more fabric without cash up front. The founders later recalled, "We were shipping $10 million a month. Then one day, it just stopped." By 1995, Cross-Colors was effectively out of business. To the public, it looked like the brand vanished overnight. But inside the company, it was simple math. When your largest customer disappears, your cash flow disappears too. And in fashion, when cash flow dies, the brand dies with it. Before we break down the exact mistakes that doomed Cross-Colors, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Aggressive Intelligence. We uncover the hidden business stories behind the brands you thought you knew, and the lessons every entrepreneur can learn. Now back to the investigation. Let's do the autopsy. 4 fatal weaknesses doomed Cross-Colors. 1. Overconcentration risk. They bet their business on merry-go-round. When that domino fell, so did Cross-Colors. 2. Oversaturation. Knockoffs and overdistribution diluted the brand. The aura of cool evaporated. 3. Operational strain. Deliveries were late. Suppliers got nervous. Retailers lost patience. 4. Trend shift. By the mid-90s, baggy neon looked dated. Sleeker, more luxe looks were in. The brand didn't fail because people stopped loving it. It failed because the business couldn't survive a single blow. But that wasn't the end. In 2014, Carl Jones and T.J. relaunched Cross-Colors. The fits were updated. Slimmer pants, longer tops, but the colors and slogan stayed bold. They landed in Zoomes, Chic, even Nordstrom. Cross-Colors is both a cautionary tale and a blueprint. Its rise proved the power of celebrity seeding, cultural messaging, and visibility. Its fall proved the danger of over-reliance, oversaturation, and poor cash flow resilience. The lessons: 1. Diversify your distribution. 2. Protect brand scarcity. 3. Keep operations sharp. On time is as crucial as on trend. Cross-Colors burned bright, but its DNA still pulses through fashion today. In the end, Cross-Colors didn't vanish because people stopped loving it. It vanished because its business model couldn't survive when one domino fell. From its launch in 1989 to its collapse in 1995, Cross-Colors burned bright and fast, a 6-year run that turned fashion into a cultural megaphone. But the story didn't end there. 2 decades later, the brand was revived, reminding the world of its message: clothing without prejudice. So what do you think? Could Cross-Colors make a true comeback in today's fashion market? Or should it remain a 90s legend? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Aggressive Intelligence, where we break down the rise and fall of the world's most fascinating businesses.